June, and to make sure that events are taking place across our country and that we keep this history alive. You know, because our Windrush generation are getting older, you know, and I think it's very much for the Labour Party, but very much for the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth generations, keeping that Windrush generation alive, the history and the contributions to our society and our community. So I wanted to speak to you a bit about some work that I've been doing, and that's been around very much around discrimination, racial discrimination taking place in schools. But before I do that, I just wanted to speak about Labour's plan to have a new Race Relations Act when we get into government. Because Labour does need to get in government, don't you think? The country desperately needs Labour to get in government. Do you agree?
Yes.
But don't we need an excellent Race Relations Act in place?
Yes.
Yeah? Equality Act, absolutely yes. But we need something that deals with racial discrimination, because we're seeing more of it. And where are we seeing it? Does anybody want to tell me? You can shout out. We're seeing it in our police forces, we're seeing it in education, we're seeing it in the fire service. Sorry?
If you go shopping, you get that.
We go shopping,
covert
we see it in everyday life, we see it in the jobs, we see it in the wages we get paid, we see it in the lack of seniority, we're seeing it everywhere. Sorry? In the NHS.
Media.
Health inequalities, in
media.
where?
Media.
In the media, we're seeing it everywhere. And it can be very depressing, and it can get us down. But we need to keep on knowing that we have a voice, and we've got to keep on pushing against it and challenging it where we can. It may not be us directly challenging it. When I say us, obviously me, I'm going to be challenging it. But challenge it, highlight it where we can. Not just think, oh, this happens, oh, that happens, this happens. No, we need to stop it from happening. We need to speak out, we need to speak against it wherever it happens, and we need to keep the conversation going. But there is something that somebody taught me a while back, and it is, when you want change to happen, we challenge it, absolutely, but we want to take those people with us so they then become the change makers. So we have to find a way which challenges organisations, institutions, you know, the public services, that challenges them to make a difference, that challenges them to make a change. Not challenges them to do it behind closed door, not challenges them to just do it more covertly. And I think, and that's what we need to do, but what makes the biggest change is acts and legislation. Baroness Doreen Lawrence lives in my constituency. She actually lives on my road. So she lives at the bottom end of the road and I live at the top end of the road. And she's been working with Annalise Dobbs, who is the Shadow Secretary for Women and Equalities. And they've been looking at the new Race Relations Act. And they've been having a task force team where people have been coming together to look at what should be in this Race Relations Act. Now, it's still being developed, the conversations are still going on. Obviously, the information we get, Matt is part of the wider Shadow Cabinet team. I am as well, as part of being David Lammy's PPS. But some of the policy is still coming together. But I want to share with you bits of the policy that I'm aware of, so you know what the conversations are and you know what's coming out. Some of you may know already. So I'm just going to read out the areas that this new Race Relations Act will focus on. And in the Q&A, if there's other things where you think need to happen or need to change, then just bring it to my attention. So one of the areas is mandatory ethnicity pay gap. So that means is that two people may be doing the same job, but one person is getting paid differently to somebody else because of the colour of their skin. Now, this will say that businesses need to report on what pay is being paid what person, and that's to narrow that gap. It happens with women as well, that women may be doing the same job, men get paid more, and women get paid less. But actually, it happens more with people from diverse backgrounds, and Labour will make a stand against that. Many black-led organisations are not getting government procurements. That means they're not getting government contracts. Isn't that a disgrace? It's an absolute disgrace. In this day and age, the government is overlooking black organisations, black-led organisations, and are making decisions not to give procurements to black-led organisations. And there is this, and that is overt discrimination. It doesn't just happen with local government, it happens in lots of different areas and places. I knew of an IT firm, which is going back maybe 10, 15 years ago, an IT firm that was, you know, at top end, doing extremely well, getting lots of different contracts with lots of different organisations. It was a black-led organisation. As soon as it somehow became known as a black-led organisation, those contracts were not being renewed. There was nothing wrong with the level of service or what was being delivered, but actually that money was not going into black organisations. But we need contracts, government contracts, to make sure they're giving it to black-led organisations. Reducing school exclusions. Too many children being stigmatised, being stereotyped, being viewed a certain way because of their ethnicity, and then the schools coming down tougher on those school exclusions. That's wrong. It's very wrong, and that needs to change. Repealing the Nationality and Borders Act, which means that children of the Windrush generation cannot be deported. And I think that's something we want to hear. So that is going to be in the Race Relations, Labour's Race Relations Act. And blocking the government's ability to revoke citizenship. Once you're a British citizen, how can that be revoked? How can you not then be a British citizen? How can you be a citizen and then be told you're not a citizen? It doesn't make sense. So that is wrong, fundamentally wrong, and against human rights. That is another area. And then finally I want to say this, and it came out of one of Keir's speeches that he made. It wasn't the last speech, one of the previous ones. And it was that he wants security, prosperity, and respect for everyone across our nation. And that includes people from all backgrounds, all ages. Okay? And that's the information I've got that's coming out of this, fundamentally good that's coming out of this Race Relations Act. And that sounds good to me. Alright? There's always more that can be done, okay? One of the other things is that David Lammy's review, I don't know if people know about it, David Lammy did this review on the criminal justice system. Many, many recommendations. Some of these recommendations have been looked into and have been implemented, but there are significant parts of that review that still aren't being implemented. And the main area is to reduce the disproportionality of sentencing outcomes for people from the Black and Asian communities. Black people and Asian people experience harsher sentences, longer sentences, and are more likely to receive sentences. And then when they're in prison, they're less likely to receive the training and the education and the support that's needed, and they're less likely to be treated better than their white counterparts. This needs to change, that review. And what I'm finding as a politician is that speaking about criminal justice areas is not something that political parties think wins votes. So it's not necessarily something that they think, or political parties think the media want to hear about. But I say that's wrong. People from our communities do want to hear about this, because we know about the discrimination that people from our communities, our young boys mainly, and girls, are experiencing. And there does need to be changes. What I also know is that when people do come out of prison, there's further stigma, there's further discrimination, and it's much more difficult for them to get back into the workplace. And we've also got an issue with housing, because there was a housing crisis, which means the accommodation they go into is often very poor if they can't go back to the family home. So these are big issues for certain parts of our community. And I'm a strong believer, yes, crime must pay, but I'm very much a strong believer that nobody grows up wanting to be a criminal. Nobody says, oh, when I grow up, I want to go to prison. Nobody says that. Children and young people often think about what they want to do, what they want to aspire to, and what they want to achieve. If they end up in prison, then society has let them down in some way. But what we need is for them to be rehabilitated. And we need to know that they're getting the training, the proper training, when they're incarcerated in prison. They're getting the support they need, the psychological support, the mental health support that they need. And when they come out, they need to continue to have those levels of support. I studied criminal justice policy. I did a master's in it. And when we're looking at other prisons in other European countries, they're very, very different. Some of these prison estates are like homes where people cook their own food, they grow their own food, they have different sorts of jobs. So what's happening while they're in prison, they're accepting responsibility. They're still having the courses, they're still having the training, but actually they're being rehabilitated straight back into normal life when they then come out of prison. And they're treated with dignity, humanity and respect. And I think that's what we need for young people in our country. So that's that on the policy side of things. Some of the things I've been very much working on. I'm part of the Justice Committee, hence why I'm very keen, and I've studied justice. And I'm very passionate about that. But I have young children myself, and I'm equally passionate about what happens in education. We know that education, getting a good education, is key to going on to get a good job and going on to help you to be successful in your life. And that's whether you go into media, whether you go into sports, whether you go into creative studies, or whether you go into the academia. Whatever job you may choose to do, you need to have a good education, because a good education gives you good standing for the decisions, to help you make the decisions that you make, as well as good support around you as well as obviously there.
And also wear her hijab. Both my children go to a Catholic school because I am Christian. When I've dropped them off at school today, bearing in mind this is the United Kingdom, okay? When I've dropped them off at school today, the head teacher's called me and she's pulled me up and she said to me, "Oh, hi, Mum." So I'm like, "Hi, miss. It's very uncomfortable. When we went to church yesterday, Malika was wearing her hijab and we weren't sure what to do with her." What do you mean? Is Malika a Muslim or a Christian? So I've got to Malika's 10 years old. Malika doesn't know. And she comes from a 2-religion household. She's exploring both religions to make an informed decision, which I think more adults need to do. Because you've got people out here just following their parents' religion and they don't have a personal relationship with God. It's very important to me that my children have a personal relationship with God, even if it isn't the religion that I follow. Hence why I allowed her to wear her hijab, even though I don't wear one. Clearly, you can see that. And hence why I allowed her to fast. And I've been fasting with her as a support system because I think it's important to support your children through everything that they're going through. Okay? Cool. So I've turned to Miss Fernandez. Yeah, I'm going to say your name. I've turned to Miss Fernandez and I'm like, "Okay, Miss Fernandez, well, Malika's exploring the religions and I don't feel as though I owe you an explanation. Oh, you do understand this is a Catholic school." So I said to her, "So are you implying that other religions are not welcome here then? Is that what you're implying?" "No, Mum, you've got the wrong end of the stick? How have I got the wrong end of the stick? You basically just told me this is a Catholic school and because my daughter is exploring Islam at 10 years old, it's uncomfortable for you guys." She like to me, "Oh, well, we hadn't even noticed that she was fasting. It was just brought to our attention." So negligence 101, because the fast started last week, Thursday. So for a week, You haven't noticed that my child hasn't been eating at lunch. And this is how your children are neglected in the school grounds because they do not care. I kid you not, guys. I'm walking around in circles in the park because I need to burn off this heat that I'm feeling. Extreme and utter anger. And in this fast, I've been really praying to the God I believe in. And I've been asking him to change my ways because I'm quite an, full-on person. But today, Miss Fernandez just had to bring out the bad girl mum in me now because I had to turn up on her. And I think education is really important. So I don't like to act up at my kids at school. Miss Fernandez's face was shocked, absolutely shocked. And then afterwards, I had to tell my daughter straight away, right in front of the head teacher's face, don't make nobody tell you nothing about your hijab. Don't make nobody in the school tell you nothing about your fast. If you're hungry, you can eat, my darling. Do you understand? Allah will understand because you're still very young. And I don't pretend to understand Islam. It's not a religion that I understand. But I will support my daughter in every way possible for her to find her walk of faith that works for her. Too many people out here in the UK, out here just pretending and going with the flow. And I'm teaching my daughters not to do that. I'm teaching my daughters to go with what's in their heart. And this school ain't gonna stop that message. Listen, my daughter's so good when she goes to school. I had to hype her up this morning to turn up. Don't make nobody, I'm gonna insert the clips in a minute. Don't make nobody tell you nothing, seriously. Also, don't make them be making you think, that it's abnormal for you to go to the church with them in your hijab, okay? You remember what I told you. You're 10 years old, and the only way you can pick the right journey with God is how?
By doing both.
Exactly. It's a personal choice, and you need to personally make an informed decision. Only way you can do that is by practicing both in the capacity you want to. Did I force you to fast?
No.
Did I force you to wear a hijab?
No, I want to.
Exactly. When you are feeling like you're hungry, what do I say to you? If you can't manage, what can you do?
Eat and pray.
Exactly. But you decide that you want to accomplish this for yourself, don't you?
Yes.
Don't make nobody tell you nothing, okay?
Okay.
Good, thank you. In the oven.
Look how happy
They
my
look so
baby
grown
looks
up.
accomplishing this.